This is the final round of the DHL Worldwide Express National Formula Ford 1600 Championship, incorporating the Star of Tomorrow Championship. And this is the final round. And on pole it is Michael Keohane in the Swift. Alongside him, the all-conquering Neil Shanahan in the Van Diemen RF90. He's won every round of the championship so far, bar the second round here at Mondello Park, and he's a champion by a mile. David Donegan in the Reynard is on the second row of the grid. Alongside him, Damien Burke in the Mondial. Neville Smith in a Reynard 84. Johnny Whelan in the Van Diemen, making a welcome return to Formula Ford racing in the Van Diemen RF90. He had a back problem during the year, and this is his first race of the season, and it's good to see him back. Trevor Austin in the Crosley is in the fourth row of the grid, alongside Brendan McKenna in the Swift. John Burke in the Mondial on the fifth row of the grid, alongside him Francis Gibson in another Mondial. Looking further down the grid, it is Neville Anderson in a Crosley, Tim Buckley in a Reynard, Conor Klein in a Mondial, and Niall Kennedy makes up the back row of the grid in the RF80 Van Diemen. With me is Richard Young. Richard Young, you know Neil Shanahan. He's had some heck of a year.
He's had a brilliant year, but there were some doubts until the last event here at Mondello Park as to how good he was at actually racing, because he had a habit of rushing out in front and controlling the race and never seeing another car. But last time he ran in Mark Cullen's Z-Tech car in the main Ford race, fought his way through and proved himself to be a very good all-round race driver, and I think he's going to have to do that again today, because it's one of the few times he hasn't started from pole.
Yes, watching qualifying, Neil Shanahan for a long time was down in third and fourth place, and it was only in the last couple of laps when the track started to dry up this morning after qualifying, or after wet race qualifying, that he actually moved himself up onto the front row of the grid alongside Michael Keohane. And Michael Keohane has been his main protagonist all season, of course, because he lies second in the championship. It's Keohane, of course, is how you pronounce his name correctly, and there he is on the front row of the grid. Car number 14, our pole sitter. The 5 second to go board is being shown to Keohane and also to Neil Shanahan and the rest of the competitors in this final round of the DHL Worldwide Express National Formula Ford 1600 race, and they get away first time, and a wonderful start from the outside of the front row by Shanahan, and he has taken the early lead as they head of the country. Somebody at the back of the grid going off onto the grass, but it is Shanahan who's shown his composure by taking
Gibson
the lead.
Playing on the grass there, but it looks as though it was Damien Burke who slotted into third place in the blue and yellow Mondial. But look a little bit further back, because back there near the back of the grid for some reason is
oh yeah, so we've had a crash there in that first corner. The first corner there between car number 65, which is Neville Smith, and another one of the competitors, I'm afraid, out of this race. The ambulance is out on the circuit, so they're going to have to work very, very hard to make sure that this that the two cars are moved, and the pace car will come out any time now, because just down on the main straight they are holding the card in front of them. Yes, out it comes. The pace car will be coming out any second now, and as you've seen, as these cars head down the main straight, the pace car, the Dunlop car, the Cosworth will head out in front of the cars and waving his hand frantically in the air. The front two cars, it's Neil Shanahan and Michael Keohane, and unfortunately that first corner incident has slowed these cars right down into a parade lap.
Yes, it looked like Tim Buckley's Reynard was the other one involved there, the two blue cars, but they'll get them cleaned up in no time. The drivers were fine, and I dare say they'll have plenty to discuss as they watch the rest of the race. But I was saying, Brendan McKenna, who's quite capable of running with those two youngsters at the front, is down there in mid-grid with the Swift, number 98. I think he might very well make his way through and join them at the front before these 10 laps are up. That is assuming that we don't run too many laps behind the safety car, and he does get a chance to make a break. He's down there in 6th place at the moment, looking at the back of what looks like Francie Gibson's car. No, indeed, it's John Whelan's, and Brendan will be loaded from there, because at Phoenix Park earlier this year, he and Neil Shanahan had a fabulous scrap for the lead of the race, which eventually went to Shanahan, because he was able to find reverse first after they both went off at the penultimate corner. Really exciting stuff. We could see a replay of that.
Yes, that was certainly exciting stuff at the Phoenix Park, and the race, of course, is still ongoing. While these cars are sitting behind that pace car, they will be docking up the laps. There is 10 laps of this race, and we'll watch with interest now that pace car at the front, the Dunlop pace car. When those lights go off, we will go back racing once again. Normally down at the S's, with just coming out of now, the lights would go off, so they may have another lap to run before they go back to racing. The stewards down at the bottom hairpin have cleared the track, and yes, they will have one more lap before they go to racing. And as you were saying at the start of the race, Neil Shanahan had a terrific race in the park. Is he a bit wasted down in the 1600 series? Should he not be up with the more expensive and better contested 1800 class?
Well, of course, it was his first year in cars after a karting career, and I think 1600 is a very good place to start if you're planning a single-seater career. Next year, he ought to be in Z-Tex or Formula Opel or something like that. He's certainly capable of driving one of those every bit as well as a lot of the established stars, and I think he has a great future. He's one of the best looking newcomers I've seen for a long time.
Yes, the conjecture, of course, will start as soon as basically this round ends. When the last round of the championship ends, the conjecture starts. Where are drivers going to be next year? Will they be up in the Formula Ford Z-Tech Championship, which was so successful this year? Will some of them make the switch to the Formula Opel series, which unfortunately has been depleted by grids, by lack of competitors and small grids this year? Sometimes 8 cars, sometimes 10 cars. Hopefully that, as our Premier Series, can get itself back online again. They're just weaving now as they come into the S's to make sure those tyres are nice and warm, and any minute now we expect that the lights will go off on the pace car and they will be back to racing.
And we're just looking across to see what the pace car is up to. Can't quite see it yet. The flags are still waving and the lights have indeed gone off, so we start racing at the end of this lap. The 2 leaders closing up now, because if Michael Keohane can get the jump on Neil Shanahan as the race restarts, well, if he can get ahead, very good chance that he could stay there. And Michael badly wants to win one of these races because he's been in his opponent's shadow for most of the year.
And the pace car pulls away and they are back to racing. And as I said, 7 laps to go, because they were still racing as they went round behind the pace car, and Shanahan has got the drum on Keohane and he leads as they go into the first corner. Car number 77 there, Damien Burke in the Mondial holding a watching brief in 3rd place.
David Donegan behind him, and John Whelan back after a long absence from racing next. Then it's Brendan McKenna getting very sideways in the Swift as they go through the left-hander, and the rest of them streaming through. But Neil Shanahan appears to have this one under control. First away, he had his choice of line for the corners. He was able to keep the doors, if not closed, certainly only ajar, and Michael Keohane chose not to stick his nose in there because he's got another 7 laps in which to find a way around. Michael locking a wheel as they go into the S's, getting a bit sideways in that yellow Swift, gathers it all up to resume on the gearbox of his leader, and that's Connor Klein's Mondial, the multicoloured Mondial, which has slid off into the bank. But Neil Shanahan still in front, Michael Keohane shadowing his every move as they come down to complete another lap. And in 3rd place, it looks very much like David Donegan with the no, indeed, it's not. It's Damien Burke and Donegan and John Whelan making a move there on the outside as well. But still, Neil Shanahan, Keohane, and then the scrap for 3rd, which is really warming up.
Yes, it's a really good battle between the front 2, and John now giving up the inside, car number 51. Well, this is a great return for him. He's had all sorts of back problems, and he is now up to 3rd place in the black car. You can just see him there in the Van Diemen. That is Johnny Whelan, his first outing of the season in the 1600 class. He was telling me he was so excited about being back into racing once again, and he's having a great scrap, and he is now up to 3rd place overall. But this is the battle for the lead between Neil Shanahan and Michael Keohane, and this the battle for 3rd. It's a real train now. John is up to Johnny Whelan, that is in the Van Diemen, up to 3rd place overall, as we once again go back to the battle for the lead.
Michael Keohane trying down the inside at the final corner, and Neil Shanahan just gets the door closed, but only just. He couldn't have got a bit of tissue paper in there. And 3rd place John Whelan still, but he's got David Donegan behind him, he's got Damien Burke behind him, then it's Cliff Dempsey, and then it's Francie Gibson in the Mondial, and Trevor Aston as well in that red Crossley, all in there fighting like madmen. But up at the front, still Shanahan, still Keohane, and I think Michael might just find a way round before the end of this race. He's looking more determined than I've seen him look all year.
Well, he hasn't been a conqueror of Shanahan all season, except for the 2nd round when Neil Shanahan had a non-finish. Michael Keohane actually won the race that day. That is car number 20, and one's gone straight on. Is that Johnny Whelan?
It was Johnny Whelan, and David Donegan had just nipped past him. I wonder was a little bit of a problem with the black Van Diemen there, because David Donegan passed him relatively easily, and then John Whelan just seemed to drive straight off the road. But he's driven straight back on again, and now he's fighting his way past Trevor Aston, and going to do it all again, because he's still a little bit quicker than those other ones he was dicing with, but just things seem to go wrong for him from time to time.
Yes, in the second round, I was saying, the second round of this championship, it was Neil Shanahan's time for a non-finish, and Michael Keohane actually took the race win that day, but it's the only time he's actually won all season, because Shanahan has been all dominant, and he's right underneath his gearbox as they head out of the country, out onto this left-hander. But Shanahan, as he's been doing all season, has been holding off all comers. He's won every single round, as I say, bar that second round when he had a non-finish, which actually resulted in a victory for Keohane.
It looks for all the world today as though Michael Keohane has the speed, but Neil Shanahan had the start, and that's what's keeping him in front. Because once you can choose the bit of road you're going to drive on, you can then choose the bit of road that your opponent's going to drive on, and that's what makes it very, very difficult for somebody to get past, particularly on a circuit as twisty as Mondello, where you're working the whole time. And there's a flag going out for somebody. We'll find out who that's for in a moment. It's for car number 20. That's David Donegan. So he, who was up into third place, is about to have an interview with the clerk of the course, and third place is not going to be his for very much longer.
Yes, Donegan, as he passes the start-finish line, will see that flag, and you can just see it in the background. It's being waved now to him. He will unfortunately have to come in. He may get out again, I'm not quite sure, but of course his battle for third is now over. But this is a real battle for the lead. Can he get that inside line? No, he can't. Very well done. Neil Shanahan just closes the door and keeps that lead. 3 laps to go.
These cars, of course, with pretty much identical 1600cc Ford engines, developing about 110, 115 brake horsepower. They're good for a top speed of maybe 140 miles an hour on a long enough straight. Here at Mondello Park, probably 105, 110. But the important thing is that they all travel at pretty much the same speed, and it's a very, very close Ford racing as a result.
Yes, a lot of the drivers we now see in Formula 1 have put their teeth, of course, in the 1600 series. It was so successful for 25 years that Ford decided to change it. It was a 1600 Ken class, which they fought the World Cup for at Brands Hatch. Such stalwarts of Irish motor racing like Bernard Dolan, I should say, and the likes of Fionn Murray raced for Ireland in the 1600 class at the festival and actually won the World Cup for Ireland.
And I thought we were going to see a change of lead there, because Michael Keohane was right up the inside of Neil Shanahan at turn 1, but no, the door got closed again and he had to back off and well, settle for second for the time being. We've got 2 laps to go. These two tied together as though by a piece of invisible elastic, and it never gets longer than about 6 feet before the second car closes right up again, as it's done there on the double apex right-hander. They're heading down towards the S's. A possible place for an overtaking move, but Michael there put a couple of wheels in the dirt. That'll have slowed him a bit. And indeed, he's going to have to follow Shanahan through here and maybe make a move at the final turn, the final right-hander, because that, again, if Neil Shanahan chooses to be on the wrong side of the road, he'll leave a gap.
Well, he took the right side of the road there, and down the back side he gets a clip, and he's lost his nose cone, he's lost part of the chassis, his ankle's pumping in the air when that nose cone is flipped up that way. Unfortunately, he's going to lose some downforce now, and I can't see Michael Keohane getting around, or can he do so? He tries around the outside, he's on the ragged edge. Can he get around the outside? No, he needs to be on the inside here, going out the country, the left-hand side of Keohane, but that was a dramatic moment.
It certainly was, and he hasn't given up yet. Even if he has to carry this car to the finishing line, he's going to finish somewhere very close to Neil Shanahan. There, the remains of his nose tucked up the Van Diemen's gearbox as they go through the double apex. He's got just the S's and 1 corner to go if he's going to prove his point here. Down the hill into the first part of the S's, Neil Shanahan trying to cover all the bases. Michael right under his gearbox again.
Yes, he looked extremely angry there when he clipped Shanahan. He probably reckoned that Shanahan braked far too late as he tried up the inside. This is the very last turn. Can Keohane do anything about it? He tries around the outside. That is not the right line. You have to be on the inside line to take the win here, and it will be Neil Shanahan who once again is dominant in the 1600 class. He's been a champion all year. He's won every single round bar 1, and he's getting a little bit overexcited there. Second place, Michael Keohane in the Swift. It's the Van Diemen who wins the Swift in second place, and in third place Damien Burke up to third place in the Mondial. Let's have a look at